Good day, everyone. You are listening to All Jiu-Jitsu podcast. In this series, we're looking to explore the business side of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is brought to you by alljujitsu.com, the world's first complete business platform for BJJ professionals. And here we're talking about athletes, coaches, BJJ brands, freelancers such as BJJ photographers, event organizers, and so on. All Jiu-Jitsu provides you with access to an online marketplace where you can sell your services such as seminars and private classes, manage your calendar, communicate with your clients, or sell physical goods all in one place. If you want to make a step towards being truly professional, join us on alljujitsu.com.
This is episode number 2, and our guest today is Andy Brown. Andy is a brown belt from the UK who is organizing Camp Aristos in Portugal. He is also in charge of a new platform, cornermebjj.com, for online coaching. We had a very interesting and transparent conversation about Andy's businesses, his BJJ projects. So hopefully, if you guys are planning on starting a similar type of business, you can learn a thing or two from Andy's experiences.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you do, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Andy, thanks very much for joining us. So you are guest number 2 in our All Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
Awesome. Very pleased. Thanks for having me, Peter.
So we were meant to meet in person in Portugal in Camp Aristos in July, which hopefully still will go ahead. That would be amazing. But the last kind of email I think you sent out to all the potential participants and the guests at your camp was in relation to obviously addressing the obvious issue of the COVID, and that you have to start thinking about it heavily. So what is your latest thinking, and how is it affecting you at this moment in time?
Yeah, so I waited a while to send out a response to COVID because I didn't think it's at the top of people's priorities, their BJJ camp. But we're also in July, so maybe that's naive. And in a week from now, that might look very naive, but I think we might be able to still do it. And basically, I told anyone who has a ticket that they will get a full refund if I have to cancel it because of COVID. I mean, at the moment in Portugal, all sporting venues are closed, probably, which is the same in the UK now as of yesterday. And so if that's still the case in July, or the flights aren't going, then I will just cancel it and everyone will get their money back. But I think we'll probably make a decision at the end of May or June. Mm-hmm. But I just keep everyone updated.
All right, so I think we'll talk a little bit more about this and the whole kind of business side of running a camp and the risk associated with it and the likes of the refunds, potential refunds, etc. But to get started, just to get people more acquainted with you, what are you up to? How did you get involved with Jiu-Jitsu in the first place? Do you train? So a little bit of info on yourself.
Yeah, I hope no one answers no, I don't train. I'm just running a camp for fun. I started jiu-jitsu in 2003 but then I was only like 15, 16, so I trained a bit as a kid in Epsom with a guy called Ricardo Novaforza. I did that for about 6 months, and then being a kid, I dropped it. And had other priorities. And then when I got to university in 2007-8, I started at Gracie Barra Bath, training there with Salvatore Pace. And I was there for a long time. And I've been training not full-time. I should make clear I'm a hobbyist jiu-jitsu person. But that's been my main sport since then, so 13 years.
And so have you ever had the intentions of going full-time, as in being non-hobbyist athlete, or was it, because sometimes what I find with people when they start and then they say, yeah, I want to be a professional athlete, because it's so appealing. Jiu-jitsu is amazing, right? And you feel, and because you're progressing so rapidly as well, it's very appealing. And sometimes you feel like you can do it, and then at some point you say, well, maybe it will remain a hobby. So what was the case with you?
So I never had. So when I was sort of a blue belt, kind of back in, I guess that was like 2009-ish. I had a blog, and I never wanted to go professional. That wasn't really a thing back then, especially not in Europe. But I was training a lot. I still had a job, and I wanted to go to Worlds and things like this. I ended up going to Worlds, but was injured like 2 months before, so couldn't compete. But at no point have I ever. I would say like becoming professional has only become a serious option for people in the last sort of 3-4 years, in terms of anyone who turns up to anyone at my gym would now consider being a professional. I think in 2010, you really had to either have like support from parents or like really just do something that no one else was doing at the time to become a professional. So for me, it was never really an option. And I really like having jiu-jitsu as a hobby. I love it. It's part of my life. It's a big part of my life. But also I don't like having a job. Who likes having a job? But I have a job, and we'll come on to this more, I'm sure, with the business side. A lot of the businessy stuff in jiu-jitsu, I think it's very hard to run. Like my camp, I don't think I would be able to run that if I didn't have another income stream.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at what point then did you have, I guess, enough confidence? You mentioned you started running some blog when you were a blue belt, but at what point did you have the confidence? Because the reason I'm asking this question is, for me, when I started jiu-jitsu, I didn't really feel that confident to do anything bar just train, and I didn't think I had the authority to do anything else, basically. But at what point did you decide, or did you have that confidence to say, I will do something else with this on the business side?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking here about imposter syndrome, which almost all of us have in every walk of life, like thinking that we're not good enough, or like, why would anyone want to hear me talk about jiu-jitsu or be interested in any jiu-jitsu thing that I'm doing? I'm not BJJ, and basically everyone isn't BJJ. So I actually came at it from, I have a background of doing a lot of kind of tech startup type businesses, and I've done other startups, other businesses that were totally not related to jiu-jitsu when I was in my 20s after I left university. And I did that for 3 or 4 years, and then I kind of took a step back from doing that and just moved into just working as a computer programmer. And I took a couple of years to reflect on what I'd learned there and brought it to jiu-jitsu, because one of the things about starting a business is that you just need to be passionate, and it's a grind. Even if it sounds fun, all of it is really a grind, and you really just need to love what you're doing. And jiu-jitsu is something that I love. And so 2 years ago, I started like putting together this camp, and although it is still a grind, I do love it, and I love that we have something out there that people have enjoyed.
And so moving on to your current project, so what do you have in flight at the moment in terms of BJJ related projects?
Yeah, so I have two at the moment. I have my camp Aristos. I should probably introduce it, but we'll talk about it. It's a European camp in Portugal. Last year was the first year. This year, 2020, will hopefully be the second year. We have the slight differentiator that it's for advanced practitioners. So what that means in practice is it's blue belts and above, although it's going to be more purple and brown belts there going on last year, and sign-ups, because we make it slightly harder for blue belts to come. And we focus very much on European talent, people who are competing at the moment. Very similar, I would say, to the first year that Royal Camp ran their camp, which was mainly European people. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to kind of support European athletes.
We'll talk more now in a second about Camp Aristos, and the second project is, I understand, is the economy, right?
Yeah. So the second project, which is I say it's fairly new. I've been working on it for 6 months or so, testing it kind of in private with friends. It's online coaching for BJJ or grappling, and the sort of coronavirus. As disaster capitalism as it is an opportunity for instructors to get another revenue stream, and for people who are stuck at home to get some kind of video analysis, personalized technique videos, and just like some training programs for when we do all get back on the mats.
My last conversation with Tarek, we were actually talking about this, and I mentioned it happened right after you mentioned the economy in our email exchange. So it kind of all coincided as people started offering this service or becoming interested in the service. And then again, people are more aware of the platforms that can enable this.
Yeah, so exactly. I would say also that Tarek and I talked about this maybe 2-3 months ago, and what I found is that even the idea of it 2-3 months ago, I found instructors being like, "But what do I have to do? How would it work? I'm not sure it's what I want to do." And I've already had, not Tarek, although Tarek might get in contact at some point, but I've already had other instructors come back to me and be like, "Are you still running this thing? Because like I have some free time and I think I could do it."
It's quite remarkable because the times is said like something disastrous like this can be very detrimental to one project such as Camp Aristos, and then being a complete catalyst for something less like think. And it's likewise with this project and all jiu-jitsu that's been in flight for quite a while, because I'm so free now, let's say, from other things that I can do. I can spend more time doing these recordings and so on. So yeah, it's good to hear. So going back to Camp Aristos now, so how did you come up with the idea for the camp? So what was the trigger for that camp, and a little bit about the philosophy? You already touched on the kind of on the broad aspects of it as to like who you focus on, etc. But so if we start with the history of how did you come up with this?
Yeah, okay, so like the origin story of so I'd been going for a couple of years to my team camp, which was with Gracie Baja, and in 2018, which was the third time I'd been, I was basically on the camp, and the breakdown of the belt level of people that were there. So there were about 35-40 people there. There were 5 black belts who were the instructors. I was one of 2 brown belts. There were 2 purple belts, and everyone else was white and blue. Which I think is probably the breakdown of most camps that you go to, like your Globetrotters and Royal Camp and stuff like that. And we had, so the time I had the idea was we had King of the Hill was going on. All the instructors were down, plus me, because they needed an extra person down. And everyone was lined up and everyone was eager to roll with the black belts. But I would also get a few white and blue belts coming to me, King of the Hill. And I basically just did 15 or 20 minutes of what was essentially a Shark Tank. And I was getting like slower and slower and more tired, until at one point, basically like this white belt had really strong guy had me in like some headlock and was just squeezing so hard. Just thinking, holy shit, he might tap me with this, just like a front headlock squeeze. And I'm so tired, I don't know what to do. Anyway, I ended up fighting out of it, which is important. Never tap to a white belt. I ended up fighting out of it. And then luckily one of the other brown belt took pity on me and was like, "Hey, why don't we switch in?" I was like, yes, thank God. But afterwards, on reflection, I thought about that whole session. I was like, at a higher level, and having been a high level for a long time, what did I gain from 20 minutes of rolling with white belts and blue belts? And that's not to say blue belts aren't good. There are some blue belts that mess me up. But and the time on the mat is important. But thinking about having smart training and getting the most out of your time, which you have to do if you're a hobbyist jiu-jitsu guy. You're not going to be doing 10 hours or 20 hours a week on the mat. You're going to train 3 or 4 times a week. That's it. And also looking at the techniques that we were learning there, they were catered and tailored so that, yes, there were details for the advanced people, but we were doing things like, like bread cutter choke, baseball bat choke, or like how to pass the guard, or like a flower sweep. So that kind of was the emphasis or the genesis of the idea. Like, if I wanted to run a camp, I want one where every role is going to be with someone who challenges me. I don't particularly want, while I'm on camp, to have a role that's like with a lot of white belts. It's like I'm teaching them, which can be beneficial, but I don't know if that's what I want from a camp. And then also I want the other side of that was to have like European competitors.
Yeah. That's very interesting, because often when I look at any sort of events that have broadly, again, if we talk in the European scene, it's broadly kind of similar people that are participating, whether it's competitions, invitational events, camps, etc., and you're looking at this as like, how, I'm always asking myself, how do people differentiate themselves? Like, why would I go to one versus the other, whether it's to watch an event or to participate in a camp? And when I saw, first of all, like for me personally, from let's say customer perspective, when I saw the camp last year, I think that looks interesting. The location is interesting. The lineup of instructors is interesting. And then this year I looked close at it because I knew again that the lineup is pretty awesome. And I thought I might combine it with the vacation in Portugal. Amazing. And then I looked at the ticket types, and I was sold straight away. I was like, okay, I'm a black belt, and I see that there will be like everybody will be at least a blue belt in there. The instructors are awesome, so the quality of training in my head, the anticipation of the quality of training straight away goes up, and I say, okay, I'm sold on this. So straight away, myself and my wife, we signed up to this. I was like, okay, we're really excited going there. So that's a very interesting perspective. And do you feel, does this have any impact on how attractive this is for instructors as well? Because they're getting training out of this as well, or is it largely indifferent?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. First, like, I'm really glad that you saw the benefits. I think one of my weaknesses as a entrepreneur, business person, is my marketing skills are terrible. And lots of people do not even know that. Like, you have to go into it to see the blue belts. And I've not communicated that well. And the different ticket types, like we have a 3-day ticket, the black belt ticket. Like, I basically thought, as a customer, what do I want? Like, I want to be as many different ways to get out there as possible. And as a person running it, I want as many people who want to come. Like, if you can only come for 3 or 4 days, come for 3 or 4 days. If you can commit to a whole week, come for a whole week. If you're a black belt, you've put your time in, you should get something back from it. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. From the instructor point of view, I had some friends that went to the first Royal Camp, and their feedback about the instructors was the instructors really, really enjoyed it. My friends who were just students there could tell the instructors enjoyed living together for 5-6 days in Amsterdam with other high-level European competitors. So they like really bonded and had a really good time. And so I definitely wanted to create that kind of atmosphere, and we do. I think last year, if you speak to any of the instructors who went on it, they had a really, really good time. We had a villa with a pool. There was a barbecue. It was quite small last year. We had 15 students, so it was a very tight-knit group, and we ate every night together. So what I would say is it's a really good experience for instructors, and those that have been on it really enjoy it. I don't know how much of a role it plays in, say, the negotiation when I'm approaching them, which is a shame, but...
Do they even know that the lineup of students is going to be relatively high level?
Oh, they know all of that. So they know They know that it's going to be blue belts and up. They know everyone else that's going to be there. They know that they have a villa. Everything's catered for them. Like, the mats are available all the time. And I'll share one quick anecdote. Last year, John Thomas and Paquito were like had a hard bromance, which you can now see happening all over Instagram and YouTube, and them doing all their videos together. I think they did a webinar a couple of weeks ago. And that I would say, I hope they would agree, is because of Aristos and like the time they spent together there.
That's amazing, and it's ought to happen. As I said, I've equally heard good feedback from the instructors of the likes of Royal Camp, which is also quite amazing. So in terms of, you said is there much of a negotiation, or do people generally, you generally have an idea who you want to invite as instructors? Are there many refusals, or people generally just like, yeah, I'll go for it right away?
Well, I'll just be very honest, because I think that's most helpful, and this is the kind of stuff I wish was out there when I was trying to do this, although it's very hard to find this stuff. With my negotiations, I'm not a great negotiator. The first year I wanted to get Espen and Matthijsen, and I was offering far too little for what he wanted. So this year we have Espen because I sort of reassessed the way I look at the camp, and it was great fun to run it last year, but we didn't make money. We made a loss last year. And now I just figure, like, if I'm going to make a loss, although we were on track to kind of break even or a little bit of a loss, but now COVID, everything, that's all out the window. But given that, I just want the people that I most want to train with to be there. So we've had a few rejections, but mostly I'm able to come. We're able to reach an agreement with almost everyone.
You can't lose really if you at least get the people that you want to train with, right? So even if everything else goes belly up, you know, like, you got to train with people that you want to train with. So that's really amazing. And so you said you made a loss on the first installation of the camp, and so was that expected? Were you expecting to say, okay, on the first one I'm probably going to make a loss, and then try to keep it going for the further seasons and try to recoup the money then?
Well, I guess the interesting thing about business is it depends on your mindset as a person, but I'm definitely a person that is completely delusional before I launch a business. Like, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to sell so many tickets. Or with Corner Me, like, as soon as I announce it, we're going to have so many people doing coaching. And it's, in my experience, it's never been like that. So before I launched it, I thought it might break even, but I knew that I had enough money saved to cover any losses. And then it became pretty clear as like the months went on and we only sold 10 tickets. I mean, I can give you the specific breakdown. Like, we announced in January last year, we sold 2 tickets immediately. Thank you to those guys. Then we didn't sell tickets again for another 2 months or something. So we literally had 2. At one point, I was running the camp with 2 people coming, but I knew that I could get friends and stuff to come, which is what happened in the end. So I didn't have a second year plan at that point. It was just to run the camp once and see how it went, even if it made a loss. And when I did, I decided that I want to run it again, but and I don't think this year I'm particularly aiming to make a profit. I'm just want to grow it and make it bigger and try not to make a loss, and then maybe in year 3 make a profit.
And in terms of the ticket types and the structure, was it identical to last year's?
Last year we tried just to have purple belts, and that's just that's not viable. So the only difference is this year is that we ran a kind of pre-registration thing straight after we closed the camp, where if you paid us £10 for a deposit, you then got a 50% voucher off any of the ticket types, which went quite well. I think we sold 10 of those, and most, not all, but most of those people have taken up the tickets. And the only way that a blue belt could come for the whole week is if they pre-registered. Otherwise, they can just come for 3 days. We didn't have any of that pre-registration stuff last year, but everything else is the same.
So it's trying to kind of front load a little bit of the ticket sales in advance and get some momentum going from the start. So that's very good idea. What I'm also interested in this format of the podcast to hear from business people is, well, at least what I find, people have a little bit more respect and appreciation for the business when they actually understand what goes into it. Because sometimes I think people assume that it's like, well, that's easy, just invite a few people over and you sell tickets and pay them. So can you tell us from your perspective what goes into running of a camp? So anything from the athlete invitation, obviously, so that there's payments to athletes, accommodation, logistics, all that sort of stuff. So what are the expense items on your list when you eventually compile your financial statements for the camp and say this, I made a profit or a loss?
Yeah, so you already know, asking that question, how much there is to go into it. So as I say, I run it in Portugal because I live here, so that helps. And if you look at Royal Camp, they run a gym. So that's a big bonus for them because they can use their gym. So yeah, essentially, where to start? So approaching instructors, that's one expense, like paying them, but almost what I will say to people who want to do something like this, instructors are open for, if you're going to pay them, they'll do it. So don't feel afraid to approach them. They're looking for the business. So if you've got the money, that's an easy thing, but it depends on the money. And camps economically are very difficult. Then there's whether the flight and the accommodation for the instructors, depending on the level of the instructor and what you're paying them. Maybe they get their own flight, but usually you have to sort of help them out with accommodation. And then there's the venue and the mats. Funny story, a week before the first camp, I didn't have any mats sorted because I thought there would be some mats. There weren't mats. There were some mats there, but I couldn't use them, etc. Anyway, this is the kind of thing you've got to be flexible and sort out, and we did. And this year, by the way, we have a load of mats sorted out from Paquito's gym / I was going to invest in some mats from China, but I don't know if that's going to happen now with Corona. We'll see. What else? While running the camp, you've got all the expenses for instructors, and then the other thing, which is a big expense, is marketing. And I put the website under that and stuff. I personally I'm a developer, but I use Squarespace because it's easy, it works. You need something like Squarespace or WordPress for something like this. And that costs money. I think I paid £250 or something for a year. And then on top of that, there's all your Instagram advertising, Facebook advertising. It's about spreading the words. If I had spreading the word, if I had £1 for every time, the instructors or anyone I've talked to about it was oh, this camp sounds amazing. Why don't you push it more? Why haven't you told more people about it? We're oh, well, we invest a lot in advertising and we get a lot of likes on Instagram advertising, but it doesn't always turn into actual brand recognition or awareness of the camp.
And is it more of when it comes to advertising and marketing, is it a bit of a guesswork on your side, or is there some form of an educated approach and the methodology behind, okay, this is how this should run? Because I found, at least for me, when I started with marketing my academy in Dublin here, it was a lot of the guesswork. and then I kind of learned bits and pieces, whereas I know other people who say, hey, I'll hire a professional and let them run with this. Again, it all of course depends on the budget restrictions and so and so, but what is your approach to this?
Yeah, so I'd probably preface this with saying, like, as I've already said, marketing, not my area of expertise, and also not an area that I'm too interested in. And so with this camp in particular, it's something I really wanted to run and wanted to create. And the marketing, I just can't get my head around it can't get my head around it. I don't understand it. Not that I don't understand it. I don't invest the time that I need to in it. So very much it was guesswork at the beginning. I got a friend who was involved in marketing to help me out, someone who trains, and she was very good and did a lot of the Instagram stuff. But again, I found myself sort of worrying and thinking a lot about it last year, about, what Instagram post is going to go viral, or like what's going to make people come to the website, or what should I put on Facebook? And I never found out what that was. So this year I've been a lot more relaxed about marketing than last year. We've done barely no marketing, just a few paid Facebook and Instagram ads, and just making some posters for the instructors.
And is there any onus on the instructors to promote the camp? So how do you structure that?
Yeah, so we... Yeah, I mean, last year, I'll tell you my naive expectation last year that got completely smashed was that if we get 5 instructors, they will find 3 or 4 people to come with them. And 5 instructors, 3 people, that's 15. I would say last year directly, 2 people came because of instructors. I mean, direct relationships with instructors. So that kind of hypothesis completely wrong. This year we have implemented a kind of we're trying to implement referral type scheme. So if instructors do sell tickets, they take a cut of the ticket sale. As of yet, no instructor has sold one yet. I mean, to put it in perspective, in February this year, we'd sold 8 tickets, and last year we sold 2 tickets by that point. So we're at least double the size. And if Corona hadn't hit, I would have expected us to hit 20 people. Now I don't know if we'll even get more than 50 than last year if it runs.
Are you considering any threshold where you say it's worth running or it's not worth running? Say everything clears, everything is fine, you're allowed to run the camp, but you have no further tickets sold. So is there any threshold, I guess?
Yeah, so last year I had a lot of thresholds of where I wasn't going to run the camp, and all of them I just ignored as they came up. Like, if I haven't sold this many tickets by this point, then I'm going to cancel the whole thing. And that's where I just had like a kind of battle in my head. I was like, I want to run the camp. I've sold some tickets to people. I've got instructors involved. Let's not stop here. So this year I didn't have any of that. I didn't have, I'm not going to run it if I don't sell this many tickets, or and this year we've sold a lot more tickets, so it's been fine. I do have a number. I know what break even would be. It would be around 20 to 25 tickets, but I'm not super focused or honed in on that number. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many tickets it is. And there is a number at which we would stop selling tickets, but it's kind of a fantasy at this point.
So where is the camp taking place? Is it a gym, or what is the venue?
So it's in the Algarve, which is a beautiful sort of beach area, and we have a hall. Basically, like, think of any tournament you've been to. We've got that huge hall. It's not all matted, but there will be lots of mats this year. Probably about 100 meters squared of mats, which is more than enough for 20 people. And the hall's very modern. We have access the whole time, nice showers and stuff. And it's from where the instructors were, it was a 5-minute walk. And it's basically in one town. So the Algarve just has like a a road that runs all the way along the coast, and on one side of the road is the beach town. And if you stay in the beach town, you're 5 minutes walk from the gym and 5 minutes walk from the beach. And then the gym is in this town over that road, like further inland.
And the instructors would be all staying in the same location in the villa which you provide, and people would have to find their own accommodation which you assist with.
Yeah, exactly. So we last year we had some accommodation which we were selling, but I would personally recommend you find an Airbnb if you're coming in a group, because it's just a lot better. Last year, the instructors had a villa, which was really a hub, and all the students were just like in and out of there, chilling out at the pool with the instructors. Like it really was, it was very cool because, and I think that's slightly different to say how Royal Camp was run, because we're not in the main city of Amsterdam where there's a lot of things to do. So it was very natural for the students to come and hang out with the instructors, because it wasn't like you couldn't go to a bar and get some hash cakes or anything like that. It was a much more kind of relaxed pace.
Yeah, and it's almost like an added benefit to people, the students. That makes a lot of sense. Any learnings, I guess, any additional learnings from last year to which you would be looking to implement this year, or something that you would definitely not do again, or the opposite that you should have done and you're implementing this year?
Yeah, so I would have got Espen last year and not this year, but that was just my sort of. And this is, I will say up front, this is quite bad advice unless you have a job that like means you have some savings to pay for it. But like the camp would have been infinitely better if I'd have just come up to what Espen wanted last year and paid him that. And that's all about kind of, at the beginning, I was trying to think, in the first year, I was trying to think, how can I make it break even or make business sense? And actually, from a business point of view, even from a sensible business point of view, if you're running an event, to expect your event to break even in the first year is unrealistic. It was like I would be opening in a gym and being like, oh, well, yeah, obviously in the first month I'm going to get 30 new students, and in the second month I'm going to have 60, and then it will break even by the end of the year, or by the end of the third month. As a gym owner, that's like, if someone said that to you, it's ludicrous. So my learning that I would pass on to anyone else is, don't look at a business, especially not a camp, or any jiu-jitsu business, as like trying to break even as quickly as possible. You need to be in it for the long haul, and that will almost in every case require you to make a loss for a certain period of time.
Yeah, so in other words, the advice is, if you're counting on this to pay your bills in the immediate future, you're probably making a grave mistake. And as you said, from running the academy, I think it took us about 6 to 7 months to break even. And that's not me even drawing any sort of salary from it, because I had a different job. So I guess you're in a similar position. So that kind of draws me to the next question, is in terms of financial pressures. I'm a firm believer, and probably with this type of question, I'm more so looking for a confirmation than anything else. I'm not sure how good of a question it is from interview perspective, but I think that the worst decisions are made in jiu-jitsu and in other kind of businesses is under financial pressure, when you really need to break even, when you really need to pay your bills out of that specific business or that specific setup. That's when you tend to make the worst decisions, and which becomes a vicious circle, right? So because you're under such an immense pressure, you probably too focused on the money, not so much on the customer service, which makes the whole experience worse, which turns into less customers essentially. Would you agree with that? Would you have any additional perspective on this?
No, I think that's entirely correct. So I confirm your hypothesis.
Confirm.
move on.
Well, no, the only thing I would say is, like, actually, if I look at the journey of this camp, if Corona had hit this time last year, I don't know if I would have been like, yeah, I'm happy to refund everyone 100%. But having run the camp once and having more of a, like, naturally tending towards more like customer service, like, hey, like, I just want everyone to have a good time. Like, I think this camp is going to be awesome, and I want other people to experience that. That's how I am generally. But under financial pressure, which last year I was a bit, because I felt like, oh, it had to make money. If Corona had hit, I wouldn't have offered everyone just like, hey, 100% refund. If we have to cancel because of Corona, yeah, I lose some money on processing payment fees, but what can you do? But this year I'm much more relaxed and chilled about it, and it was the right thing to do. And if it's the right thing to do, not under pressure, it's the right thing to do under pressure, I think.
What I find is the decision making is affected a little bit when you are under that pressure. So happy you confirmed my thinking. Thanks. So in terms of your payments and the payments processing, so what are you using? So you're using Squarespace, and I presume that comes with some form of payment integration, right?
Yeah, we use, it has Stripe and PayPal.
Okay.
I mean, Stripe is super easy. PayPal is a bit harder.
In what sense?
So now I'm being a bit geeky. I'm talking in terms of, as a developer, on Cornerme, we just use Stripe because it's so easy to integrate, whereas PayPal would require a little bit more work. I guess on Squarespace, actually, PayPal and Stripe are just like click a button and fill in some forms, and it works.
The reason I'm interested in this personally, because on All Jiu-Jitsu platform we also use Stripe exclusively. So for the time being, PayPal option is off because, again, it requires a little bit more work, a little bit more pain, and I also find their commissions are a bit higher than Stripe as well for payments. So hence my question. So hopefully, if with any refunds, I think the payment providers should be for refunding part of the fees as well, at least. So just to one last question on the camp. Is it just yourself, or do you have anybody else running this with you or invested this with you, or is it just your own effort?
It's entirely my own effort. I have a lot of help from friends, advising, and there's a friend who helped me with the marketing, but like mainly it's just me, which is something that I would like to change, but it's finding the person who's ready to commit to that kind of responsibility is very hard.
For sure. All right. So, hopefully it all goes well, and Corona goes away, and a few more tickets are sold, and we all meet in July. So then, moving on to the next venture of yours, which is Cornerme. So talk to us a little bit about Cornerme. What is the platform? Again, how was this triggered, the origins of it, and where do you stand with that now?
Yeah, okay. So before we dive into that, I might just step back a little bit and talk more generally about like business in BJJ, like how that's like maturing, because it's kind of relevant, because I think there's two types of business in general. Like, this is not just in BJJ, anywhere ever. And interestingly, with Cornerme and Camp Aristos, I have one of each type. And I think on a high level, those two different types of business are like, the first one is a already existing business model that you're trying to do. So outside of BJJ, it would be fish and chip shop or a restaurant, and inside BJJ, it's like setting up a camp or a gym. Gym is probably more common, right? In terms of, it's not really a business idea. You're just doing something that lots of other people are doing, and you're going to try and make it work, which is not easy, but it's not kind of innovation. And the second type of business are the ones where you're trying to do something that no one else, or very rarely no one, but not very many other people are trying to do. And I would say in like Cornerme, which is online coaching, is an example of that. Maybe 5 years ago, what Flow Grappling have set up is an example of that. BJJ Fanatics is an example of that. And when looking at like whether I want to do a business idea or not, when you're in that second kind of innovation category, I think having done a lot of businesses and been involved in the startup scene for a very long time, the one kind of heuristic I use is that I think works quite well is look at the business and ask yourself, in 5 years' time, will this be commonplace? And if you ask me in like 2015, would we all be watching the Euros on Flow Grappling? Well, maybe that was the first year they did it, but now it's just commonplace. Everyone has a Flow Grappling account, right? Same for BJJ Fanatics. And that's why I'm interested in Corner Me, because I think in 5 years from now, it will just be another tool to your training. Like, yeah, I get online coaching from insert name of world champion who lives in America while you live in Latvia.
Yeah, and so who do you have on the platform at the moment?
So at the moment we have Elena. It's a lot of people who are on the camp, who have been on the camp last year or this year. So we have Elena Mostam, we have Charles Harriott, who's an American no-gi grappler. We have Bradley Hill, who, though he wasn't on the camp, did come to the camp last year with Samantha Cook. And we have Fakito. So those are the four that we have. We're signing up a few more at the moment, but I'm not going to say who they are because I can't, because they might not sign up, or we'll see. But there's some exciting ones in the pipeline.
Fantastic. And what does it take for people to sign up? Literally just get in touch and say we're up for it.
Yeah, pretty much, and maybe have a black belt. That would be helpful, but not exclusively, because we've already spoken about one person who could definitely sign up if he wanted to.
And what does the platform enable? What is the process? Is it entirely based around the payment structures, or is there any technical facilitation of the online coaching as well?
Yeah, so this is really interesting for us to talk about, because we have like very similar. Like, you could just add online coaching onto All Jiu-Jitsu, and you would have essentially what I have out of the box tomorrow. I have spent a lot of time, because I'm a developer, building out the platform and not using WordPress, so that the business can grow into more the software area and serving the instructors like if what things they want much more easily than being constrained by, say, WordPress or Squarespace. But at the moment, we are very much just there's a flow in which you request a lesson from an instructor, and they get to review your profile and kind of make a decision if they want to take the coaching or not. And we secure the payment up front. So we act as what we're basically offering the instructors at the moment is a middleman for payments, so that if there is any problems, but usually there's not, or any disputes, we deal with that, so the instructors don't have to. And having spoken to instructors, that is really valuable, because people just don't like asking for money up front. I know one instructor who has a lot of online clients, and he's very good at it. You know, in the first text message, literally, or first Instagram message, it's like, here it is, here's what I do, this is the cost, here's my PayPal, if you're interested, pay me. And he kind of has to be like that, because otherwise people will waste his time, be like, oh yeah, maybe I'm interested, and then he's investing time and effort trying to get them to pay, and then they eventually just go quiet or just say, oh, can't do it now.
100%. So yeah, the very reason, I think, one of the primary reasons we started All Jiu-Jitsu was that whole awkward part of money talks, because a lot of the times good athletes, they're not necessarily good at talking money. They're not necessarily good at enforcing that option. So almost outsourcing that part to a third party is just a big relief and removes a lot of the uncertainty. So it is. I do believe that it is very valuable. So for people who want to sign up to your service for any instructors, they just have to reach out to you, and then you would assess them whether you would like to take them.
Yeah, pretty much that's it. It's not more strenuous than that. And at the moment, so if any instructors are listening, get in touch. I'm sure we'll include emails for me in the show notes or something like that, or just go to the website.
So it's cornerme.com, is it?
No, it's not. It's cornermebjj.com, all one word.
Okay, Cornerme. Yeah, so we'll definitely include it in the show notes for people to reach out. And any broader, whether you have a business idea, what do you think is the state of entrepreneurship in jiu-jitsu at the moment? Because one of the first email exchanges that we had, and one thing we forgot to mention is for Camp Aristos you can also purchase the tickets on All Jiu-Jitsu, which hopefully makes the experience a bit easier as well, and we'll try to promote it from our side. But when I initially approached you with the invite to All Jiu-Jitsu for Camp Aristos, you said you're very much into all kinds of BJJ entrepreneurship, so that kind of struck me well. But where do you think the current scene is with entrepreneurship in jiu-jitsu? Because what you hear a lot of the times, which again in my opinion is a bit of a flawed concept or flawed idea, where you say there's no money in jiu-jitsu. What's your view and what's your take on this?
Yeah, well, knowing some gym owners, I know there's money in jiu-jitsu. There's definitely money in jiu-jitsu. What I would say is, again, looking at those the two broad business types, the kind of the fish and chips or the gym and the moonshot innovation. On the gym side, I would say like the best time to start a jiu-jitsu gym was 5 years ago, and the second best time is now. It might not be right now because of Corona, but if you have done nothing, start now. And by the time you're ready to open your gym, Corona will be gone away and you will not regret having started it. I think if you are the right kind of person, you have the right kind of training, as in you've put your effort into jiu-jitsu, then gyms make money and jiu-jitsu is growing, and you should do a business like that almost always if you can fund it. Like all the things we've previously said about don't expect it to pay the bills in month 2. So yeah, I think it's very like positive and optimistic, and there is money in jiu-jitsu in those kind of things. On the flip side, on the kind of like innovative things, again, I'm also positive. Like I think there's so many different areas that pass my personal like in 5 years will this be normal test. I give you one example, which is a friend of mine who has made no effort to do this. So I'm putting the idea out there for someone else to do. Was like filming all jiu-jitsu competitions. So he wanted to hook up with Grappling Industries and just film all of the mats and upload them. Now, there's a lot of people who would hear that and be like, well, who cares about, if a friend of mine competes at Euros or Worlds, I'm going to go on Flow Grappling and watch them. But if they compete at like Grappling Industries Dublin, I don't care. Like on Monday, they can come and tell me how they got on, but I'm not going to watch them. However, I think in 5 years from now, it will just be standard that all tournaments are filmed, and the people, like I won my matches from Grappling Industries Dublin. Like I went to GI Dublin last year, and like I'd love to have my videos filmed. Have my matches on video so that I can put them on YouTube and watch them and use them on CornerMe to get some advice.
Do you know what? Now that you said this, I think I might have refereed a couple of your matches.
Oh yeah, I think you have. Yeah. That was last year. I did all right that tournament. I fought a brown belt. I won the absolute. Was that adult? Yeah, it was adult absolute. And in Nogi, I fought a guy with leg locks. I was just fucking petrified the whole match, but managed to win 2-0. Can't remember his name. Some Welsh dude.
So that's quite funny because it's like, I remember you, because that's the first like encounter we have in terms of like the face-to-face conversation, but it's not, because I've refereed you. It was a tiny hall and a load of people and very hot.
But GI is great. Like Grappling Industries is good. That was just an off day for them, I would say, having competed a lot with them.
I know it was great. I think it was a fantastic experience. That was my first time refereeing as well, which I enjoyed the experience of for sure. So hopefully, again, I hope I will talk to the guys from Grappling Industries as part of this podcast, because I'm very, very interested in their business model. So it would be amazing to have them as well at some stage. That's funny. So anything else from your side in terms of anything else coming up, or you have your hands full for the time being with the camp and with the Corner Me?
So I have my hands full. I think definitely over the next couple of months it'll be more Corner Me than camp. The camp will just be watching whether we have to, what's going on with COVID. Otherwise everything's planned and ready to go. But from Corner Me, the only thing I guess we didn't say is like plans for the future and how to grow it, which I'm quite keen on saying. Like we have a lot of ideas there. It's also just me on this one as well. But I have a lot of ideas, and so from the sort of customer side, or from both customer, like student and instructor side, like we will be building a kind of platform which is more involved. So you message them on the platform back and forth. The instructors can share videos, but what we want to do is, as we have more people using it, we can figure out exactly what is the most useful thing for instructors to have on that software side and for customers to have on the software side. And the other thing that I think we're going to expand to, once we've established ourselves a little bit and as a kind of online coaching for grappling and jiu-jitsu, I think very soon you'll see us add some more streams like strength and conditioning or nutrition on there. So you like almost, if you're thinking about becoming professional, you can get the best coaches in your corner, the best strength and conditioning, and the best nutritionists.
Amazing. So I think that's going to be on the rise. Especially, I think those ideas will be propelled over the next few months. The thought of these ideas, while people have nothing else essentially to do and try to explore in the mind, will kind of wander into these areas for sure. So hopefully, as I said, while it is a horrible situation for a lot of reasons, hopefully some positives like this will come out of this as well.
Yeah, well said.
So I think that's a wrap in terms of this podcast. So Andy, thanks a million for joining in. We'll release this episode soon. I'm pretty sure that a lot of the guys who know you, but also who have any intentions of starting the camps or starting a new business within BJJ Industry, I think will benefit a lot from listening to this. So thanks a million.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Also, any of those people who are interested in starting a new business or anything, like, feel free to contact me. I will give you as much advice as I can.
That's amazing, and I say the key here is I think for the entire industry to grow is the sharing of the knowledge and the sharing and the growing of the entire business. So likewise, I think I would be more than happy to share some of my pitfalls and things. So it's really good to hear somebody with a similar mindset. That's amazing. So we'll include all your contact details, all your websites and everything in the show notes, so people can reach out to you.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Also add my Instagram, even though I don't really do Instagram, but I need to get more followers.
And this is it. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you.